Hey everyone, I'm Boom.
And I'm Spice, and this is episode 9. Episode
Yes, it
9
is.
of Fantasy Friday. It is Discworld 1, The Color of Magic. And we are covering the first 7 Discworld books in a row, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and for starters, you do not need to read these in order. That's merely a choice that we're making to build towards the Dune Project.
Right. I think if you ask a lot of people who are into this series, they almost like discourage you from reading them in order because of the way that they're written. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I think I like them.
it's worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worked out perfectly fine. Also, if you do not want other um, Discworld books spoiled for you, you need to stop when we give you the spoiler warning because we've read a lot of these. I've read 9, I think, at least
Yeah.
9 or 10.
Yeah. I think I'm at least 8 deep, maybe 9 now.
Yeah.
And there's so many of them. None of them are very big. Oh
What
geez.
was that, Boom?
That was the this table goes up and
Yes,
down.
I know. What happened?
I tapped the little lever when I went to make a hand
Scared
gesture. But yeah, there's so many of these books, and they're so short individually, but the story's
Yes.
getting pretty long, so it's hard to separate exactly. I've been trying today.
Yeah.
Between the first two, at least.
Yes.
I like reread the end of both of them a little bit. So
I was just on
we were
the Light Fantastics one because I was mixing it up with um, the sorcery. Yes,
yeah.
sorcery.
To like big endings.
Yes,
for
exactly.
Rincewind.
Yeah, we'll get into what happens there. So for our first one, The Color of Magic. Boom. My first question for you is: how do you feel about this as an introduction to Discworld?
I think it's a pretty cool way to introduce it. Uh, Using like the format of having a tourist come to the Discworld to explore it is kind of a fun way to get to like really explain the world because they're having to explain it to a tourist who's never been here. So you kind of get to sit with Two Flower and you're like getting to notice it as he does. So that's kind of cool. Uh, it's a lot going on, but I think the exposition in the start is like it's not. I mean, it's hard to follow in that it's like kind of nonsensical a little bit. It's just kind of crazy, but it's pretty fun.
I agree. I think it lends Terry Pratchett the opportunity to do the naive protagonist thing without it being like a child,
Right.
like Harry Potter or somebody like Percy Jackson, someone who like is naive but needs to have a certain amount of like plot armor or something. Like Two Flowers not protected in this in a way that is like he feels above being killed off. That's just not how Terry Pratchett is. He'd rather see this guy fumble his way into being okay.
Right.
Like that's just the humor of it in part because he's just a goofball who keeps on getting
Yeah.
caught in funny situations.
Just making like total light of
Yeah.
these things that are happening.
Yeah, and it's not his skill or cunning that's keeping him safe. It's luck and Rincewind and the luggage. Uh, Speaking of which, our friend the luggage. Yeah, we've got our good pal the luggage in here. And Boom made me my favorite notebook of all, or not notebook, bookmark of all time, which is currently resting on page 441 of the Fellowship of the Ring, and it reads: "The fantastic wealth the luggage contains is matched only by its air of sinister malice." And he made a fantastic drawing of the luggage with a giant tongue and razor sharp teeth and these creepy little legs, and it's running around, and it's I don't know, the luggage is terrifying in a really funny way.
It really is. Like I was kind of flipping through these today and found a couple scenes with the luggage, and it is easily like the funniest character in these books.
Oh, it's great. And that's saying something. There's a lot of really funny people.
Absolutely. These are funny books.
Yeah, like Rincewind's funny. I think that the orangutan is funny.
Yes.
Like the orangutan librarian is funny. There's a lot of funny aspects of that. Death is very funny.
Yeah, Death and like the people he interacts with.
Yes. Yeah. Like him drinking with the rest of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Uh, like him having this thing for cats and like trying his best to be kind, but not coming off as nice. Like there's not the veneer of niceties. He doesn't understand pleasantries.
Right.
He's just a dude. He's like
Just a really literal guy that
exactly.
takes pride in his profession.
You know, he's played voice wise by Christopher Lee,
Uh,
and the adaptations of these, the TV
I
adaptations.
did not know that.
These of our two books we're covering today. Not in this episode. There will be a separate episode for Polite Fantastic. But yeah, he plays Death. Christopher Lee does.
Very cool.
Which that has single-handedly made me want to check this out.
Yeah, absolutely. I came really close to watching The Hogfather this year. I'm not opposed to watching it just anytime. Like, I don't know. I'm always
we could catch it next November and talk about it.
Right. Because I don't know. It's like a pretty like well known.
Yeah, it's by the same
film.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's by the same people. The I think it's called. No, it's a two-parter, and it's The Color of Magic and The Light Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think. So, do you think, besides the fact that it's from Two Flowers' point of view, like what else do you think stands out as an introduction to Discworld? If anything.
Right. Yeah. No. I like. Some fantasy, like you don't have to go super like broad scope at first.
Yeah.
You kind of get like a just like a description of whatever tavern they're in,
like
something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
where they're in a very small setting.
Yeah.
Just for the sheer, like just to kind of get a grip of like where you're at and how crazy everything's gonna be. He has to go into he goes into this explanation of like Atuin and the four elephants,
the great Atuin, the giant turtle.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty cool kind of way to open it up because just getting to hear about this kind of primes the pump for like more of the craziness that's going to happen. I feel like if you just started it in Ankh-Morpork and they're, like it's a crazy little town, but it's not quite as crazy as four elephants riding a turtle.
Yeah.
With a disc on their back. So I think that's a good way to get it started.
This is a part of why I regret not reading Fellowship before I read Discworld, because he's lampooning a lot of the stuff from these Lord of the Rings books. And one of them that comes up is the whole like finding a guy in a tavern thing.
Yep.
Like the idea of like Rincewind being the Strider in this situation. Him being like the standoffish guy who's sort of like begrudgingly put into this situation. Strider, being a friend of Gandalf, being found out later is, beside the point. But the fact that like Rincewind is the hired gun here, like their equivalent, and he's the worst wizard ever.
Yeah, you go from someone like Strider, who's this like extremely competent guy,
the most competent dude. As soon as Gandalf's dead,
the exact guy that you need to have with you.
Yeah.
You go to Rincewind, who's like totally like just a regular guy
Yeah.
who has no want for any of this to happen to him. He just reacts to stuff like a regular, not brave person would.
Yeah, his best attack is kicking people in the junk.
Right?
He does that to everybody. Feels like, at least.
No, that's funny.
Yeah.
And it's cool reading these, because Terry Pratchett's like a huge fan of Tolkien and like all of the prevalent fantasy back then, and that makes like his the satire in these feel way better. It's not like it's super good natured.
Yeah,
really fun.
It's not mean spirited.
Yeah, it just really adds to the experience because it's funny. Yeah. You read it and like like for someone who also loves fantasy, like it's not hurting feelings. You're like, this is just hilarious.
Yeah. Some of the tropes in fantasy are just funny.
Right.
It's just a funny thing to have in a book. Like, I don't know, if we wrote parodies of like, or satire of like Brandon Sanderson, who knows how mean spirited it would get? Because like, no matter how we feel about him as a dude, I've got no problem with Brandon Sanderson as a guy. But as an author, I'm just not a fan. I think he's fine at best.
Right.
So it's like, if I'm making fun of him, sometimes I'm going to bare my teeth. Like, I'm going to really get at him because I have no love lost for his media. But if we did one on Frank Herbert, like, yeah, I'm gonna make fun of him. Like the whole like, you feel that under your dogs, feel those
That
G's.
classic line.
Or I'm gonna talk about like them ignoring the worms after like book 2 or what have you, or like like anything else that's funny about the Dune world. But like at the end of the day, I like Dune. I like Dune a lot.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I like the second Dune book quite a bit. And the third book's all right. And then the fourth book happens. So it trails off, but still, I have an appreciation for his art. If I wrote some satire, you'd be able to tell that it's from a place of appreciation and like, I wouldn't say obsession, but certainly fixation. Like it takes like you being really interested in an author to do something with love, and I feel like you could feel that come through with Terry Pratchett's writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's fun. How long did it take you to read The Color of Magic, you think?
Not long.
Same here.
Because these, like both of these, I kind of did what I do a lot, like where I audiobook while I'm in the car, and then like I would be so into it that
You
I
hop
would
onto the book.
go right home and start reading it when I got home, book form.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe like I probably run these about like a week.
Yeah.
Of like moderate, intense reading.
What's the page count?
Page count for my version.
Just the pretty common slender version paperback that you get at Barnes & Noble.
277
with big font.
The Color of Magic with big font,
big margins,
not full pages,
but also no chapter breaks. So that's another thing, which I wish he had chapters. I don't like. I get it. I get it as an artistic choice. Like you want the action to continue, but I like the save point. I like I can stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, like this is the size of book like me, Bam, and Cameron have been starting to read together.
Yeah.
And that's how we do the progress.
Yeah, that's how
especially
you do
with someone,
book clubs.
It's not easy to just like stop and then you got to get picked up on what's happening.
Yeah, the natural break might be midway through a page. And what do? Do you say you're on page 184 and a half, or do you finish the page and then stop at a less convenient spot?
You start the next page and you're like, oh, I got to reread that page anyway.
Yeah, that's one of my few critiques of Terry Pratchett. Like, I just wish that he had included that as a stylistic choice for me as a reader. I don't know how you even do the audiobook then. You just go straight.
It's hard to find where you're at because that's the other thing. When I'm doing the switching in between,
sorting.
Yeah. As you go to chapter 1, it's like, all right, chapter 1, and I'm 20 minutes into chapter 1. It's going to be like halfway. I start reading and like, okay, I haven't read this before. Let me back.
Exactly.
And there we are.
Yeah.
That was not the case for these. It's like, okay, I'm 3 hours and 40 minutes in. That seems to be like a third of the way through.
That's like, it reminds me, I'm doing one of the few like audiobook deals of my entire life. Like I'm not him. I'm not the audiobook guy. I'm using my free Spotify minutes. Like I have premium and I'm using my minutes for the month on War and Peace. I'm now 51 chapters in and they're back to doing bureaucracy. So I'm pretty unhappy about that. Pierre is back and now he's courting a woman, but also sort of not, but also definitely is. And I've got 49 hours and 32 minutes left. So
just about there.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm almost there. It's 365 chapters. So I can do one chapter a day and finish it in a year.
That's a lot of book.
It is a lot of book. And they're like hefty chapters. They're like 10 minutes long at least, most of them. And I don't know. It's one of those deals where it's like those translated guys. They use such highfalutin language. I have to be at like 1.2 max to understand exactly what's going on.
Yeah, there's no way to like advance it. I've been reading those the Live Ship Traders trilogy, and it's like, I mean, Robin Hobb, like her prose is so easy to flow with. So like I've got it at like 1.7 right now.
Oh, yeah.
Just burning through these books.
Yeah, nonfiction, I tag team that thing. I almost went 2 times speed when I was reading what's Anthony Bourdain's book? Kitchen Confidential, that's it. Have you heard of that one?
No.
It's nonfiction. It's about a dude who, like Anthony Bourdain, died a few years ago. He hanged himself in a hotel room. But before that, he was a chef and a traveler and an author all at the same time. And he wrote about his travels and issues in the food industry, while also discussing his issues with addiction and how that dovetailed with his career and his childhood and things like that. And it's a pretty svelte read. It's like 10 hours long. It's 1/5 of War and Peace, if that. And I've enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I read it all the way through. And that one, I could like 2 times speed it practically. I ran through that.
Mm-hmm.
Or like Consider the Lobster by David Foster Wallace, same deal. Back to Terry Pratchett. So would you would you like book this, like physical book this, or would you audiobook it?
I think that depends because I kind of got a taste of both with this one, and I
Yeah.
think it just depends on who you are as a reader because they do a really good job of the audiobooks on this. Like they have like an original music track to them
That's awesome.
and an orchestra that plays this awesome song at the beginning of these books.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. So like the production value is really good.
But it's a fast read too.
But also it's just such a fast read.
Exactly.
You know, if you're going to have to spend a credit on it, maybe not.
And they're also so small. They're so easy to carry.
Right.
You know, like if you're going to the beach or something, this is a perfect book. So I agree with your assessment. I think it's very up in the air. I don't think you can go wrong either way.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, the spoiler section is upon us. Please join us next time for episode 10. We're going to cover The Light Fantastic, also by Terry Pratchett. And then we'll keep on rolling up until Pyramids.
Right. Yeah, we've got a lot of books read here. We're ready to get moving on these things.
Yes, sir. Please join us then. And also, on the horizon, in the near future, we are covering George Orwell's 1984.
Yep.
That's going to be a long episode.
A long episode. And the introduction, the first episode of season 2.
Season 2. Exciting times. Exciting times are upon us. And it's been 6 months since Bam's birthday. We still need to do Reincarnation Blues.
Yep.
So that one's also on the docket.
Yeah, that's just we just got to catch him here. You know, he lives in the same house as me.
The very same. The very same.
I see him almost every day.
Just about.
But we barely ever get a chance to do a podcast with him.
Oh, man. Such a shame. Such a shame. And on that note, I've been Spice.
And I'm Boom. We'll see you later. And we are back with the spoiler section.
All right. If you don't want it spoiled, get out right now. Right this very second.
And like we said, like spoilers for
all
of Discworld.
And really a lot of books. Like the first 4 Dunes, 1984, Reincarnation Blues, Pride and Prejudice, War and Peace, Moby Dick.
If you ever intend to read another book.
And any prior book too. Frankenstein.
Yeah, geez.
Anything. Yeah, really. And it's not even limited to that. That we can't even cap it on that. So
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
if you haven't read every book, get out of here.
Get out of here right now. You know, they've talked about who the last person to have read every book was. Like some say it was, I think John Milton was in the running. You know John Milton? Have you ever heard of, oh shoot, what's it called? Paradise Lost?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's John Milton.
Okay.
Yeah, so super learned guy. Yeah, they've discussed who the last person to have read every book was, and he might have been it. But it's hard to tell.
Yeah, there's a lot of books.
Also, it feels a little like Eurocentric, right? To call that like every book, like written work. You're not getting nearly everything. Right. It's like, what are you calling it, a bound book? Is it? I'm sorry, I yawned. I didn't mean to. Boom. My apologies.
I'll forgive it this one time.
Just this once. I've been working since 6. And not quite 6. I've been on the road since 6. So it does feel a little Eurocentric because you're like, well, if you start throwing in non-prose works, your sorts of your poems, your more Eastern stuff with like haiku and everything, it's like, how are you counting this? But in terms of, at least in the Anglophonic world, you've got a dude who read everything. Um, how did that come up? Oh yeah, John Milton could have, like, if he had a podcast back then, or was listening to a podcast, he'd be able to go into the non-spoiler section,
Right.
the spoiler section with no fear.
Because
he's read literally every book.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's like the dude at Blockbuster where you're like, have you seen this movie? Seen it. This movie? Seen it. Exactly. Have you read any book? Read them all. Literally every single one.
That's insanity.
If he boasted about that, I think I'd write a book and not let him read it. I'd like snatch it out of his hands.
Ultimate power over him.
Exactly. I'd publish it and try my very darndest to keep it out of his hands, his mitts. And I'd read it. I'd read everything else.
And then everything else. And you could be the only one until he writes another book.
If you write a book and you don't read it like in its entirety once it's been published, have you read it?
I guess not. I mean, I guess you would know everything that happens in it.
But you didn't read
the act of reading it. I suppose you haven't.
Do you think people do that a lot? Like there's a lot of actors I know that don't like watching their work. Like Adam Driver does not watch his work.
Right.
Like he gets mad when people try to get him to watch his work. Like it's a big deal to him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why exactly. I understand in a sense, like getting in his own head. I'll watch my wrestling highlights and I'll get stressed just by knowing I'll win. Like my heartbeat will start going up.
Yeah, or just get mad at myself. Like I'll just see these like situations and like, what was I doing right there? Who let me do that?
And it was me. I'm the culprit
the whole time.
Yeah. Do you think that like that's something people do a lot?
I don't know. Because I guess it just depends on who it is and how long it is. Because I feel like I would want just from a quality control standpoint. But I'm sure they have editors.
Copy editors and copywriters and stuff. Yeah. I'm talking post publication.
Right.
I'm talking like off the shelf. Would you read it?
I feel like I would read it because I would imagine I would write stuff that I like or would want to see.
I mean, I do.
And I'd want to get the experience, of people who do buy it. It's fun. I was just watching an interview with Neil Gaiman about a book I recently read from him. That's like Stardust. Yeah. And he was talking about how that was originally produced as like a DC comic.
Yeah.
And then he wrote a book about it so he could make it more the way he wanted to. And he's talking and he's like, yeah, for the comic, like I would have these ideas and, I would just go with something that seemed cool. So I wrote that this person was sharpening, like they had an obsidian dagger that they were attacking someone with. And I just made that change and didn't even think about it. And then later I'm reading the audiobook for it. And I had her sharpening her obsidian dagger on a whetstone, which you would never do. That isn't a thing. It was like, if I hadn't read I hadn't read it up until then, and I just realized a total hole in the plot. Yeah. That's absurd. You can't do that. He's like, so I guess the next edition I'll have to change it.
Yeah, that's a really funny observation. So if he hadn't been reading the audiobook, there's no way.
Yeah.
And there's lots of authors who don't have the presence of Neil Gaiman. Like you wouldn't want them reading their books aloud. So it's like, why would you even, you're not catching it then.
Yeah.
I don't know. Brandon Sanderson, nice enough guy. He's good in his YouTube videos, but I couldn't listen to him read his audiobook. He doesn't have that kind of presence.
Yeah, Neil Gaiman is a very good narrator.
Fantastic orator. Yeah. Yeah, he's terrific. So it's strange to me because when I made music, when I was in choir, I'd listen back to it And I didn't coordinate what we were singing, but I'd listen back to it because generally it was stuff that I liked, and there was a bit of nostalgia there, or like not quite nostalgia because I'd very recently lived it. It's I don't know, just reveling in recent good feelings, and I don't know how much of that would come through with reading your own work, your own published work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, I guess that could be the other thing too. Like, yeah, maybe it's just like a good memory. Like I
Yeah,
know, like in that same interview, he's talking about like the ideas that gave him, like that turned into scenes in the books, and like some of them sounded like pretty cool times.
yeah.
So maybe you're reading it through, and you're like, oh yeah,
That,
that's why I did that.
that kind of reminds me. There's a scene from The Stranger. Wait, have you read The Stranger?
No, but that's
Oh, I don't want to. Is this a spoiler? Do you want to hear what I was talking about?
I'll hear. If
All
it's
right.
gonna flow into the
Yeah.
into what
So
we're talking about.
I was at school today. By the way, I got a job as a substitute teacher. I'm not going to tell you where. That kind of goes without saying, but that's what I'm doing. I recently graduated.
Just wait until we have Bam on, and he can say our names some more.
Oh yeah, great.
Then people
Yeah.
put it together.
Yeah, thanks guys. So I was sitting in the staff lounge, like the sixth grade staff lounge, and this guy was talking about how he hates his dog. He hates his dog. He's like, it's just so loud, like nails on the floor, can't stand it. Never heard about anyone hating their dog like that in real life, in my entire life. Like like you got your Elvis, like he ain't nothing but a hound dog sort of deal. But like in real life, like someone hating their dog, never. And there's this character in The Stranger who his name is Salamano, and he beats his dog every night. He just smokes that thing. And Mersol hears it through the walls every night. He runs into Salamano in the stairwell. He's like dragging it by the collar or whatever, calling him like a flea bag or something. And then suddenly, one night, he comes in and he sees Salamano crying. He's inconsolable. And his dog had slipped through his collar and got loose in a parade, and he couldn't find him. And he's like, oh, he might be dead in the gutter somewhere. I've looked in all these kennels and I can't find him. And then Marceau comforted him and he walked away. And Salamano's just crying. He's just inconsolable, sobbing. And it just reminded me of this dude who hated his dog. And I brought it up, and I felt like a complete total weirdo for one, pulling out that reference, and two, like I don't know, like comparing it to my colleague. But I flipped it around. It was far less sad sounding, but I was like, yeah, it was very interesting that you hate your dog. Yeah, just completely. I don't know. It was very strange. It floored me that.
Yeah, no, that's a totally
went over
totally
everybody's
odd thing.
head.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Oh, I
bet.
Head.
Hey, this one side character from The Stranger that I like? Here's this thing about him. He's like Polonius. No. I got very few. Like I've got ride or die characters, and he's one of them. Like your Tom Bombadil, which I can't unpack yet. I'm still finishing up Fellowship. Once I do,
yeah, we're gonna have to get on that episode like soon, just based off of. We just need to have this conversation.
Dude, we can hang on to it. We can sit on it until we're done with the Dune projects. But I got to talk about it at some point,
right?
Because my takes about Tom Bombadil are like coursing through my veins. And I've got other hot takes, and I want to share them, but I can't. Meanwhile, with Terry Pratchett, there's no hot takes for the most part. Rincewind is funny. The Luggage is hilarious. Two Flowers really funny in his naivety. Like the ending is fun and mysterious. Where he's falling off the world. Like, what more is there to say?
Right. Yeah. No, it's just a pretty good time the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, we get to meet Death. He's pretty cool. He gets cooler as the series goes on.
Yeah. More depth to death.
But I mean, overall, like, yeah, there's not much to not like.
I like chapters. That's about it.
Yeah.
That's about it. I think it's very good. I love The Luggage. I like Two Flower being rich. I think that's really funny that he just throws around money like that.
Right.
The cold open with Ankh-Morpork burning down and then being like, what happened? And they're like having this argument and everything, and then they see Two Flower in the luggage. That's great.
Yeah. I like the footnotes he does at the start of these books, and I mean he continue. They happen more often as it goes on.
Yeah,
just to explain these crazy things that he's talking about in a like way that is normally even crazier.
Yeah.
Those are fun. There's a couple times where like it's not like chapters. He doesn't do it in chapters. Like he'll like break it up and like he'll do a prologue within the book to the next part of the book.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny.
It is really funny. It almost feels like it's the first draft, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
in the way it's written.
Very free, very loose.
This is how I'm going to introduce this next part, and he just left it in there.
Yes, exactly. There are some meta elements that are really fun. Overall, I love Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett, I think I might have read more books by Terry Pratchett than any other individual author.
Yeah, it's getting to that point. I mean, just the vastness of the Discworld series and how easy these things are to read.
Yeah.
It's only going to get, like, the gap is only going to increase. Yes. Like, because I'm reading, like, I love to read these. It's like, it's like we talk about with a lot of, like, these Fantasy Friday books, like, how sometimes the world just, like, is not fun to be in at all. Yeah. Discworld is, like, super fun to be in.
Exactly. Yeah, even if I wouldn't want to live there, it's fun taking the trip there. I like being Two Flower.
Right.
Yeah, even in books I like in Fellowship, I'm at this point where I'm almost at the end. We've since left Lothlorien. Mm-hmm. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so.
Yeah, Lothlorien, something like that.
Yeah, I would say.
And we're being chased by orcs, and it's not a great time right now. And
no.
And the Mines of Moria, it was exciting and it was thrilling and exhilarating. But boy, am I glad I'm not in the Mines of Moria. Meanwhile, there's not a place on the Discworld, like not the Ram Tops, not the ocean overflowing to the side, not the Unseen University, not Ankh-Morpork. Like that, it's just a fun place to be. And, there's just a lot of fun stuff, man. Like Octarine being like the missing color, like the magic color, and then being like it's like a purplish green.
They lead it up like this, this completely magical, incredible thing, and it's just sidebar, like it's just kind of a greenish purple.
Yeah, that's fine.
it's an underwhelming color.
Yeah, it's very explicable. It's very like you can explain it. Just greenish purple. Any notes, Boom?
Not a lot.
Yeah, I don't have my copy because I lent it to my girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff I've got dog-eared is just like examples of like funny stuff that's happening.
I'd rather you just read it.
Right.
Yeah, read the footnotes. It's just a funny book. Like the luggage being chaotic. There's nothing funnier in literature, I don't think, than when Terry Pratchett is describing something chaotic happening and you don't know what the cause is. And then he slowly reveals that it's the luggage again. It's like
the luggage cracks me up, and the way it stares at people, and it's just these people who have never seen it, and they're like, I know that thing's staring at me. And other people are like, what are you talking about? like I don't know, it's looking at me. And he'll even say something. I don't even know if it's in one of these two, where it's like just he'll describe what the luggage is doing, and it's just being a piece of luggage. It's like the bookmark, it's just it's at the edge of sinister malice that it's just a piece of wood has.
It's just a box. But at the end of the day, it's so chaotic. It's so fun, dude. Oh man, it's maybe my favorite inhuman character in the history of literature thus far.
Oh, I think I agree. Oh, it's a funny
and certainly thing. The least, like the best inhumanoid literature character ever.
Right.
Like not even like talking or anything.
Yeah, it has zero it never says anything.
It doesn't
has
have a
no
face.
dialogue, not a face to make emotion.
Yeah. It can't even, like, it might like grunt or something.
Yeah. But mostly it just like looks at people expectantly.
Yeah, exactly.
Or just does funny stuff, like it'll shove into them.
Yeah, it's like a very smart dog. Like the smartest dog ever. Yeah, it's between him and the orangutan, I think. The orangutan librarian.
The orangutan librarian is very funny.
Oh, he's so funny.
Like that it's aware he's like, and it could change back.
Yeah, it chooses to be an orangutan.
Has no interest in doing that. Like it's not a permanent thing.
Yeah.
He's not trapped. He's just like,
he likes being an orangutan.
Yeah.
He likes just
being an orangutan, have the library, eat some bananas.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's fun. It makes his job easier when he's climbing with his
get
giant
around
orangutan
all
arms.
the times. Very cool.
Oh, it's so funny. Such a funny character.
Yeah.
You're just imagining this terrible magician, like this terrible wizard, this creepy wooden box, Two Flower, who's just this portly little guy, and an orangutan.
Yeah, it's good. But then, like, you know, like with as funny and like nonsense as it is, like he does like a really good job of explaining the magic and like how these things are happening. Like he is and it like just such a skilled author to be able to do that. Yeah, so well together. Yeah, very cool. But also funny. I've got a little bookmark here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Of I forget. I think this is when they're like imprisoned. Yeah. At one point, and he's like the guard or someone they're with is flipping a coin. It's that Haroon guy. Yes. He's flipping a coin, and he's like, "All right, call it in the air." Someone's like, doesn't even think about it. It's like the edge. Is there by like some magical field? Yeah. And it hits the edge, and then he starts off and says, "Rincewind, Two Flower, and Haroon stared at the coin. Edge it is," said Haroon. "Well, you're a wizard. So what?" He's like, "I don't do that sort of spell." "You mean you can't?" Rincewind ignored this because it was true. "Try it again," he suggests. Haroon pulled out a fistful of coins. The first two landed in the usual manner. So did the fourth. The third landed on its edge, balanced there. The fifth turned into a small yellow caterpillar and crawled away. The sixth, upon reaching its zenith, vanished with a sharp spang. A moment later, there was a small thunderclap. And then he's all mad because that was a silver coin. And Rincewind's just like so mad. He's like, "Well, like, we're by a magical field, man. That's just how it happens."
Yeah, it is pretty funny also to be like a wizard and to have no control over like wizardry. Like, I don't know, that's just how it happens, dude. Like, I'm not gonna, I can't fix it.
Right, yeah. He's like, "So what? You made it land on the edge." It's like, "No, I can't do that, man. Yeah. I can't do any spells."
Any more thoughts, Boom?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, this is a fun book. Give it a read. Yeah,
it's worth it. I mean, just the length and how much fun.
It's easy
for the length. It's just worth it.
It's fun. It's easy. It's a good time. It's novel. Like it's like noteworthy. It's you get stuff in this book that you don't get elsewhere unless it's in Discworld.
Right. Yeah. If this one really just doesn't sound like your cup of tea, there's like 41 books in the Discworld. Just start reading some descriptions. There's got to be something. Yeah.
Like Mort's great. Very different from this. Equal Rights. Also
Equal Rights is really good.
Different from this. Yep. Sorcery's awesome. But Sorcery's similar to this awesome. one. Yep. Agreed.
They're so far, I mean, like most of them have been pretty awesome.
They've all hit for me. Small Gods has some complications, but generally it's pretty good. And next time join us for The Light Fantastic.
Yep, episode 10.
Episode 10.
Fantasy Friday will be matched with season 1.
And then we're starting season 2.
Is that going to be like season 1 of Fantasy Friday over?
No,
I don't think we can do that.
No, we're
in
just
the middle of a series. I think it'll just kind of be one of those.
Yeah, we're just going to keep going. We're going to keep going until we hit a nice round number and it's convenient. And then we'll call it. And then we'll have a little party or something.
Right.
We'll invite all our friends who read books.
All of our friends who are into books.
Bam.
Danny, I guess, could come back, but she lives in Georgia right now.
Oh,
It's a
jeez.
trip.
Oh, no. Boom. You just gave away a part of our location.
Oh no.
Oh,
She
now
lives.
they know.
She lives in
Georgia the country.
yeah, yeah.
Georgia the country.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Of course.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Just slowly but surely, it's gonna get pieced together.
Oh, my God.
Exactly where we live.
Oh, it's like a puzzle. It's so scary.
Someone's got their
Yes.
map of the U.S. that they're just crossing off.
They're a beautiful mind office. Like they're just connecting strings. Oh, man.
One of the 20 people who are subscribed, one of them is doing this.
I hope it's not you or me. I don't know. Well,
yeah, just don't go through that door over there and expose the room where I have all of the red lines.
please don't look at the man behind the curtain. Oh, man. On that note, I've been Spice.
And I'm Boom. We will see you next time.